Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to get started in about 3 to 4 minutes. In the meantime, please do use the chat function to let us know where you're joining from today, your name, your group, and where in the country, or perhaps which country you're even joining from today. For those of you just joining, again, we're going to start in a couple of minutes just to give people a chance to join. Please use the chat function to let us know your name, what organisation you're joining from, and where you're joining from today. We've got a really nice mix of community energy groups, local authorities here today. So hopefully there's something for everybody to learn from and take away, and a nice opportunity for us all to connect together. Oh, we've got some university partners, excellent, very nice. Lovely stuff. One more minute and then we'll get started. Already seeing some links there to Loughborough Uni, excellent. Perfect. So I'm sure a few people will continue to trickle in, but we'll make a bit of a start in earnest. So welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name is Ben. I'm a project coordinator at Community Energy Pathways. And today I'm joined by some fantastic presenters who will be doing the bulk of today's talk. I'm really just doing the nitty-gritty admin and the housekeeping. We've got another colleague of mine, Asma from CEP, who will be monitoring both the chat and the Q&A today. So if you have anything to add or any questions, please let us know. So today the webinar will last for about 1 hour and 15 minutes. So we're going to aim to finish by 3:15. The bulk of that session today will be presentations from our two main speakers, Francesco Premi and Ilonka Marselis, who will introduce themselves, I'm sure, in a bit more detail later, with a briefer introduction by Ollie Penderid from CEP and Mark Lumpney, the president of Rescue. The meeting today is going to be recorded, so if you don't want to be included in the recording, please feel free to turn your camera off. That also saves a little bit of bandwidth. If you need any of the accessibility features, you have the option in Teams on the top banner to change the view to focus on the content or to focus on the range of speakers. You are also able to mute the chat, and you can do that at the top in the controls. We do have today a question and answers feature, so the Q&A. You can find that on the top banner towards the center of the screen. This is where we're going to be taking questions for our Q&A session at the end, so please do put anything you would like to ask in there. If there is a question that you particularly like or think particularly resonates with you, there is also a voting feature, so you are able to upvote questions that you would particularly like our panelists to answer. We will also be monitoring the chat, so that's there to have kind of more live discussions as needed. But any questions for the main Q&A session, please do use the Q&A feature. If you do have any questions, please drop myself or Asma a message and we can do our best to try and support you today. Lovely stuff. So without further ado, I am going to hand over to Ollie Penderid, the Exec Chair of Community Energy Pathways, who is going to kick us off today. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much, Ben, and welcome everybody. And thanks for putting in the chat where you're from. It's great to see we've got people from all across the UK and some from Europe to join this call. So Community Energy Pathways this year, we made the decision at our board to join ResGroup EU, and who then in turn invited Ben and I over to the ResGroup forum in Latvia a couple of months ago, and it was really amazing. We met with another 26 countries, all with energy communities, community energy, all in different shapes and sizes, and it was really inspiring. And it felt really important that as a follow-on from that, that we set up this webinar and sort of build that neighbourly love between Europe and ourselves. And it's great to be able to invite Ilonka from Energie Samen in Holland, and also Francesco from WeForGreen in Verona in Italy. Both these organisations, they're a massive inspiration for me, what I learnt about them. And likewise, I hope this is really interesting for everybody that attends. And also we've got Mark Luntley joining, who's the president of ResGroup. He's also a director of Energy for All. So Community Energy Pathways aren't the only UK-based organisation or English-based organisation that are members of ResGroup. So, please, everybody that's joining from an community energy group, have a look at their website. There's all sorts of great resources and ways of connecting with our European partners and being inspired and sharing resource. So I'll just move on a little bit, and there's a take control button, which is great, and now I can see the slides that are coming. Just a little bit about Community Energy Pathways. We were established back in 2011 when we supported 12 community energy groups in Sussex in a year-long programme called the Community Energy Peer Mentoring Programme, which was match funded by West Sussex at the time. Now, 5 of those groups at this stage are real pioneers within the sector, like Vesco, Avesco, Energise Sussex Coast down in Hastings. And it's great to see them thriving today, doing not only energy generation projects and innovation projects, but also so much energy advice, to consumers and vulnerable and those being left behind, and giving advice on low carbon technologies, how to install solar in your homes and heat pumps. And also we're seeing the evolution of one-stop shops within our local authority areas, but also on the high streets, and in Lewes, we host a climate and energy hub. So people from the high street can come in, talk energy, talk climate, and be inspired. And that's great. So, and in all, over the last few years, we've supported 54 community groups, mainly in the southeast, but all across England as well, to grow and expand. Now, I've talked about the Energy Forum with ResGroup. It was really inspiring to be with all the groups from across country. I think there were 26 other countries representative. And, we're going to hear from Holland, the Netherlands, and Italy, WeForGreen in Italy. But there are others that are really inspiring for Ben and I to meet, like Austria, where they can do peer-to-peer trading and send power to neighbours and what have you. It was really fascinating. And what's going on in Spain and France with Energie Passionate and other federation organisations. Ben and I actually joined the Social Value Portal, Social Value workshop, which was really well attended. And so we were able to present on what's happening in England, with energy communities, with community energy, but also what's happening with social value and the way of measuring it, so that we could so we can kind of report back to Treasury and funders. And I think that's really important going forward. So um, and just to summarize, there are some real key differences between the UK and the UK European energy systems, and I hope that will come out in the discussion today. You know, different policy environment, and I'm really pleased to hear from Ilonka and European partners, you know, that they're watching what's happening with the local power plan and Great British Energy really closely. So, you know, we're doing something right, although for many of us it might feel like we're climbing up the hill, like the Grand Old Duke of York. We haven't quite come over the other side yet. And then, but also they've got a different sort of governance system, very stronger role for municipalities and cooperatives, and this is somewhere that we can learn from in the UK. You know, how to work with our local authorities, and in Europe they call them municipalities. So, and then the different market design, the policy frameworks around enabling local supply and real value to consumers. In some countries, we really heard that, and they are leaps and bounds ahead. So, so that's fascinating. So, without further ado, and Mark, I've got control, so I can pass over to Mark Luntley, who's the president of ResGroup. And Mark, thanks very much for giving us time. And there's your first slide.
Could you go back to the previous slide for a second?
I can do. Yeah.
There you go.
Learning to drive. Yeah.
There you go. So I don't know what that is. Okay. Well, welcome. I was just going to talk for a couple of minutes about what ResGroup is, to encourage you to find out more about it. And as you'll see, the picture on the left is all of us in Jomala, and the picture on the right is the team and the board. And I think it illustrates to me climate breakdown is a serious issue, but this is a joyful movement of community energy groups across Europe. Could you move us to the next slide, please? And I'll give you a little sight of it. And here I've got two bits of this slide. The piece on the left is showing a map of the different community energy groups. So there are about 120 odd members of ResGroup, but a number of those are federations. So when you look at the federations and members of those federations, we represent 2,500 community energy groups across Europe. That's about 2 million citizens working together for an energy transition. And it's from Portugal through to Ukraine. So it's, as Ollie said, it's the 26, 27 EU members, but in fact also countries beyond the European Union. We've now got a second member there from Ukraine who are doing really amazing things in that country. And we've got places as well in other countries. And we've got 4 objectives. We make citizens' voices heard in policy making. We really try and promote what I'd call international collaboration. And so that community energy is an energy transformation movement, but it's also a peace movement. We're looking to grow the sector, and we put a lot of work into supporting community energy, particularly in Eastern Europe. And if you look at that map there, you'll see there's many more members in Western Europe and fewer in Eastern Europe. And the cooperative movement is really at the heart of what we do. And one of the things that we have done as an association, and we're an association based in Belgium, we've got about 19 staff, and a board of 8 co-ops, of which the UK is one. There are 2 in Spain, 1 in France, 1 in Belgium, 1 in the Netherlands, 1 in Germany. that we are here to promote the energy definition. And as we say, here is an energy definition. We're looking at that in the UK. We actually helped develop the energy definitions in the rest of Europe. And you'll see there those written down. And I'd simply say what this shows is, and what's important to me, is that I think community energy works best when you look outwards rather than looking upwards to national government and learning from each other. And I think you'll find that in a minute. And I think my next and last slide will follow. And this just gives you an idea of the sort of things that we do. So we're involved in production. So here, for example, you'll see Westmill Energy, which I am chair of Westmill Wind, but you'll see Seacoop in Belgium, or an offshore wind supplier. We've got supply, so people like Energie in France, Enostra in Italy. You've got organizations that share those, so Samen in Catalonia, EcoPower in Belgium. We've got car sharing, distribution, consultancy, so EBO Consult, who are the driving forces often behind that offshore project Middelgrunden. You've got citizens engagement, so the work of Energy for All. And finally, you've got works of citizen-led renovation as well. So you've got a whole variety of things. And if I'm going to leave you with one thing to say, look outwards, look to your peers, look at the ResCoop website. If you're inspired and interested, get hold of either myself or indeed Ilonka. And we will be very happy to talk about what ResCoop are doing. And if you want to find out more and even join, you would be most welcome. Thank you very much. I shall pass over.
Thank you very much, Mark. So next we're going to pass to Francesco, who is joining us from Verona. Over to you, Francesco.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. And I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation. I hope that you hear me well, listen me well. Okay. I have the very difficult, can I say, short time to explore difficult and different scenarios of energy communities in a completely different country, that is Italy. My point of view is quite facilitated because I work in an energy operator, as you can say, is WeForGreen, and I am of the advisor and corporate affairs, but I am here with other hats, and I hope that is clear why during my presentation, because I also am a member of a cooperative that is exactly WeForGreen, that WeForGreen founded some years ago. And recently I went as a member of the board of a renewable energy community that is called Lucense 123. I hope to make story short and simple, and for any kind of question I will be available at the end of the presentation. First of all, I said it's necessary, I fear, an introduction about the Italian electricity and the system that regulates the renewable energy community, because any country has its own differences, and the Italian system unfortunately is quite complex and quite complicated. I try to make it as simple as possible. First of all, I want to share with you how the Italian electricity system at a glance may appear on three main dimensions. First of all is the institutional layer. We have many entities that are involved in regulation, tariffs, incentives, and energy price. Some of them are just acting on behalf of the government, like ARERA is the Energy Authority, or GSC, that is the subject that is involved in operative regulation and incentives. But we have also some other kind of entities that are more market related, like GME and IPEX. IPEX is the Italian Power Exchange. So the place where the market conditions are fixed and the energy price is settled. Of course, then we have a second dimension that is the physical electricity chain, as we can say, as you probably know in other countries. So we have a generation phase with producer and prosumers. We have the transmission and distribution. And then we have the retail phase towards the end users. The differences are quite important here in this chain, because there are some infrastructure roles that are regulated monopolies in Italy, like transmission and distribution. Transmission is national, distribution is local, let's say. We have just one national transmission system operator, that is Terna, but we have more than 120 local DSOs. So you can imagine how the grid is different and complicated, because the distribution has also the grid connection for any kind of plant, from a small to a very big plant. Other roles, generations and retails, for example, are market roles on a competitive base. We have production, we have supply, you have trading, you have aggregation. The third dimension I want to focus at the moment is, let's say, the kind of overlaying that can happen between the market and what we call energy communities in general terms. We have market operators in generation, in retail, and we have energy cooperatives. Some energy cooperatives, as WeForGreen, is also a market operator as a producer of energy. And both market operators and energy cooperatives are dealing in a market-based revenue system. On the other side, you have renewable energy communities that sometimes adopt cooperative form. In Italy, we estimate that 10 to 15% of renewable energy communities are in form and act in form of cooperatives, but this is a system that is based on incentive-based revenue. The most difficult thing is to understand how does it work, the renewable energy community Italian framework. What we have to bear in mind is that a renewable energy community for the Italian system is both an energy sharing model, and I underline the adjective virtual energy sharing model, and an independent and new legal entity that must be created and brings together all its own members. The main purpose why the government has regulated the REC system is to increase national energy self-sufficiency by law. Then, of course, we have the reduction of CO2 emission and also the creation of value for territories. The benefits to territories are strictly linked to incentives. And incentives in the Italian system are granted for the energy that is virtually produced and consumed at the same time in a specific territory. Each part of this map underlined by a black boundary is what we call a specific territory, conventional area. There, in each area, an energy community can be active with at least one production plant that must be maximum 1 megawatt size, or you can have to double the number of plants, but the maximum size of each plant must be only 1 megawatt. And in this territory, the community can have many members, a part of a large company that are absolutely excluded in taking part in a community governance, but they can put their plants in the availability of the renewable energy company, and also energy operators are excluded. When we share energy in a specific territory, in a specific conventional area, this shared energy generates a certain kind of incentive. The incentive is distributed to the community. There is no effect on the bills of any member. It is the community that may decide, according to his own regulation, how to distribute the incentive that has been created in his own territory. I don't want to focus on the complicated system of generation of incentive. However, let's say that each megawatt hour that a renewable energy community is able to generate, so to share in a territory, the community gives back from the government from 108 to 140 euros per megawatt. And it is very important to understand that for the Italian way to think the system of the energy communities, a part that roughly we could say 1/3, but is not always exactly like that, must be allocated to local communities where the incentive has been generated. This is very important because it's a compulsory distribution that cannot be avoided in any way. You can understand that working in this way is quite complicated, also because in 3 minutes it's difficult to explain, but we have invented also a more complicated system. So I know that I probably have to make more efforts to make it things clear. I work, as I said, for WeForGreen. WeForGreen is a renewable energy operator and a market innovator that has always worked to provide access to energy generation. Provide access means that we would like to share the energy generation to as many subjects as possible. We are based on the first energy sharing experience dating back to 1923 as a cooperative, and since 2009 we have developed, funded and managed energy sharing projects, enabling both individuals and businesses to consume and self-generate renewable energy, even before the era of renewable energy communities. Now we are acting as an energy operator because we produce, we sell, and we buy also renewable energy from many plants, and as an advisor for shared energy models and ESG reporting. What Ben mentioned, or Ollie mentioned before, about the social value of a community in the territory is something that we are working on as well, and we share some thoughts with them in Jurmala. Our business model of WeForGreen as an operator is based on 2 pillars. One is the pillar of the operator that works as a project developer, EPC contractor, retailer, and advisor to support both energy cooperative WeForGreen that we contributed to found, and other customers, mainly B2B or B2G approach, and also supply electricity as a normal supplier to the retail market that are mainly B2C represented. The other pillar is the developing of energy cooperation models to enable, as I said, anyone to generate or consume remotely the energy produced by renewable energy plants. These 2 pillars have generated our 2 milestones. 2015, we founded WeForGreen, that is a pure energy cooperative that raises funds from members to develop medium-sized PV plants, 1 to 5 megawatts, and produce energy. WeForGreen then buys the energy produced by these plants and resell it to the market, both to the cooperative members or to other customers. The fact is that the members of WeForGreen, as a cooperative member, may enjoy better tariffs than the normal markets one, and they receive back a yearly patronage refund generated by the business plan of the cooperative. In 2023, WeForGreen, when we saw the development of the regulation of the system of the renewable energy communities, we helped to establish Lucense 1923, that is a renewable energy community, that where WeForGreen as a cooperative allocates some plants up to 1 megawatt to further incentivize the energy that at the point is virtually shared in some territories between members. The first pillar, the first milestone, is WeForGreen, that is our energy cooperative model for remote photovoltaic self-consumption, and started up from a question: are we sure that anyone can self-generate energy because we have a problem? Or an answer: we know that energy self-generation is capable of reducing risk for consumers and business in some particular scenarios, like the ones that we are living now, uncertain and constantly evolving, even for geopolitical reasons. But we know that not everyone can install their own rooftop photovoltaic system. Why? Because they live in apartment buildings, because they live in rented homes, and because they are living in historic center. Of course, if remote photovoltaics take place, people can purchase portion of the photovoltaic system and benefit for the economic value associated with the energy produced. Just to show you that the model of WeForGreen is a solution to market challenges, we say that we have created in the last 10 years less exposure to energy supplies strategies with a capped price. The light green line is the price that a cooperative grant to its own members. The dark green is the national market wholesale price, and the gray one is the medium market price of energy in 2025. This flat line was the line that our members paid in 2025 compared to the market. And of course, we lowered the risk associated to abnormal price trends. Just to show you some results of this kind of approach, we generated more than 10 gigawatt-hour of the renewable energy. Now the cooperative is probably the second one, bigger cooperative in Italy with more than 3,000 members, and we installed a capacity of more than 16 megawatt-hour. Shared investment, so investment paid by families and people since 2011 is more than 35 million euro. This model has been even, how can I say, has been integrated by Lucenza 1923. That is a way for us to, from one side, to support even better the business plans of the cooperative, WeForGreen. On the other side is a way to leave money and to create impacts in the territories where the cooperative installs its own plants. There are some key actors in the model of Lucenza 1923 model. Main important is the individuals and the WeForGreen sharing cooperative, because they contribute to the financing of the plants and consume the clean energy produced. But we also need SMEs, because they are the most effective consumers of clean energy in that territories, generating and shared energy. And we know that in Italy, shared energy means incentives. But we also work very strictly with local authorities and institutions, because they can give our model a local legitimacy and help steer the generation of positive impacts. We need to speak with the territories, and we also have to speak with bank and impact investors, because sometimes it's true, cooperatives need also some financial leverage to support the project development. Just to show and to share with you some facts and figures and some networks of Lucenza 1923. These are the plants that now are conferred into the community. More than 13 megawatts installed. It's a total of 15 plants in northern, central, and southern Italy, for a total of 1.4 million euro of potential incentives that can be generated each year for 20 years. Based on a not so difficult to reach estimated energy sharing of 70% of each territory. This is important when all local configuration will be activated by GSE. GSE is the regulator of the incentives, and we need to wait its own confirmation to start the calculation of incentives. And this is a very slow process in Italy at the moment. And this is the final number that I want to leave you at the moment, is this one, 320,000 euro, that comes from this part of the tariff that will be distributed to local communities. And you can imagine this number shared by 15 territories, how much can create in terms of social impact in that territories. I think that I have finished. I'm sorry for my English that is not so perfect as in the past, never been perfect, however. And I leave you, Ilonka, thanks a lot. Thank you very much. I'm here to answer to any other question. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Francesco, for a really good insight into some of the complexities, but also the opportunities that are present in the Italian energy system, and particularly the opportunities and challenges of local supply. We're going to move now to Ilonka Marselis, who is strategic advisor from Energie Samen in the Netherlands. We'll have plenty of time for questions at the end, so please do keep them coming in the Q&A. But yeah, I'd like to move to Ilonka now. Thank you very much, Francesco.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for this opportunity to share my experiences in the Netherlands, and thank you for the previous presentation. Let me see how I take control. Is it moving now? Yeah, right? Great. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in on a different aspect of energy communities, not the energy sharing, but I'll mostly zoom in on district heating opportunities, but also energy saving. And we're moving towards integrated energy systems where also the electricity generation is part of the heating system. So I will cover it all, but I'll focus on district heating communities in the Netherlands. As Ben said, I'm a strategic advisor at Energie Samen, but there's also a logo of DHC Muse here, which is a European research project together with Ireland, Spain, France, and Italy, and the Netherlands, in which we study how energy communities can do district heating projects. So if you want to follow that project, I'll share the link to that, because we're putting a lot of deliverables there, which help you make an investment plan or which steps to take. So first of all, what is Energie Samen? Energie Samen is the Federation of Energy Communities in the Netherlands. Now, the Netherlands is quite an evolved movement of energy communities. As you can see, in almost all the municipalities, there is an energy community active. And there is over 700 energy communities in the Netherlands in total. 139,000 citizens are members, but on the right lower part you can see what these communities have installed as capacity already. So there's over 1,400 solar parks. There is over 300 megawatts of collective wind capacity installed on land. We're currently bidding for wind on sea, hoping to own that with our communities. There are 78 initiatives for district heating. There's only one running cooperative district heating network, and there's one almost, well, actually they started delivering heat yesterday, so there's two now, and there's many that are very close to finishing the build, but a lot of them are in an early stage. And almost half of all our energy communities are also providing energy saving advice, or what you call citizen-led renovation or energy efficiency measures. So I'll talk about that a little bit as well. But Energie Samen is just acting as a federation. We ourselves don't do anything. We don't make projects. We do advocacy and knowledge sharing. And our main aim is to achieve a more secure and democratic energy future, where we really, of course, want to focus on getting affordable and price stability, but democratic control of the energy system, and that the economic value that is generated by the energy project is actually benefiting the regions. Francesco was giving really nice examples of how that can be achieved within energy communities. That is also our vision as Energie Samen with our members, to create this democratic and secure future. And recently also this goal of energy security and grid stability and more energy independence have been added to our list of goals. I'm going to start off sharing 3 stories of energy communities, just to give you a little bit of an idea of what it looks like in the Netherlands. So here we see a picture of a close friend of mine, Olaf. He lives in Zwolle, the town where I also live, so in the north of the Netherlands. And he is active in an energy community in the neighborhood with the highest percentage of energy poverty. As you can see in the background, it's quite old houses, very poorly insulated. And many years ago, a citizen initiative started with wanting to make the neighborhood more green. So it didn't start around energy. They started wanting to have more greenery in the area. But then the war in Ukraine started, the gas prices really rose a lot, and they started thinking, hey, maybe we can help people pay their energy bill by saving energy. So they started talking with their neighbors about how can we save energy, taking measures, insulation. But then a few years ago, they really got conversations started like, wait, currently we're heating our houses with individual gas boilers. That is the case in 99% of all the houses in the Netherlands. They have an individual boiler burning natural gas. We want to stop using that gas because there's a high price volatility and we don't want to use fossil fuels. How are we going to have a different supply of heating? And they didn't want to have individual heat pumps. First of all, it's quite a lot in a very tight neighborhood if everybody has it, but also these people cannot afford the investment of a heat pump. So they started thinking about a collective solution, a district heating system. And currently they are pretty far in developing a district heating system that's completely owned by the people that live in that area. That's what makes it unique, and I'll come back to that later. But first I'll share another example of where they're finished with building that. So this takes you to Amsterdam, our capital. Here you can see a giant heat pump being craned into the technical basement of a neighborhood. This is a neighborhood right in the city center of Amsterdam, so it's an old neighborhood with very old buildings. They also wanted to stop using gas, and they decided to make a collective district heating network. So they build pipes through the streets, and they have one spot next to the canal on the right. You can see water. That's a canal, and they're using that as a source for heating. So it's called aquathermal heat, it's called, to provide themselves with heat. The important thing here is these people did not want to be dependent on a public district heating network, because Amsterdam already has several commercial district heating networks that are in collaboration with the municipality, the local authority, and those are very expensive, and people never fully trust how those tariffs are come about. And so they didn't want to be attached to, because when you're attached to district heating, you're attached physically and you can't switch off, you can't choose something else. So they wanted to own it themselves, to have full decision making, and they managed to realize that, and everybody in the neighborhood connected. And just last week they started giving heat to the first houses. They're still finishing the build basically, but it's a good example project of an existing neighborhood switching from natural gas to a sustainable source. Anything else? Oh, right. Yeah, one more thing I wanted to say about here is that they collectively decided to have a solidarity-based tariff structure. So they pay a certain tariff for their heating, but if you can prove that you have very low income, you can get a discount on the tariff. And that's the first and only district heating network in the Netherlands that offers that. And they collectively decided to do that because let's say richer people, they actually pay, of course, more to help these people, the people that can't afford more. And also they have a very low fixed tariff and a very high flexible tariff. So if you don't use as much heat, you also pay a lot less. Now, the final story I wanted to share is of an image that is the most common image when you think of an energy community. Also historically in the Netherlands, most energy communities started with windmills or solar panels. But here's a big one in the south of the Netherlands, Betuwe Wind. They have built a lot of windmills, and now they're thinking, what's the next step for our energy community? Because in the past, they would give yearly about 700,000 euros in community fund, you call it, I guess. Yeah, so they put that back into the region in regional projects. But now they were, because of two developments, they're looking at other things. Because in the Netherlands, we have grid congestion. I don't know if that's the case in the UK, but in some areas it's difficult to get a new connection to the grid. And at some points it's hard to get electricity in or to feed it in. And the second thing is that the prices in the summer are very low, or the prices when the wind is blowing are very low. So you don't make as much money with wind as you used to. So both of them have become incentives to start looking at how do we keep the energy local? How do we connect supply and demand? And how do we share that energy rather than sell it on the market and then buy it back? So they're now looking into energy sharing and connecting supply and demand. And when you're thinking about that, you immediately think about heating. Because if you want to use the electricity that you produce in the summer, you can use that in the winter as heat. So you store the electricity as heating, basically a thermal buffer. So they're developing two district heating projects currently in towns around these windmills that are going to have these giant buffers that in the summer are filled with electricity. That basically then you have free heating in the winter. Yeah, so that's the next step that a lot of energy communities are looking into, because of this grid congestion and because of the low prices in the summer. So, but then what is district heating? Because it's quite complex. It's not as simple as building a windmill. Let me first take you through the definition of what we see as community-owned district heating. For us, that means that the citizens and the other end users of that district heating network are actually the owners or co-owners of that district heating system. So they literally own it. That means they can also have decision-making about that. And in the Dutch law, it's also said that you have to have democratic decision-making about it. Of course, there needs to be voluntary and open membership. You can't force people to be a member of that community. And the aim should be local value creation. So it's not for profit. On the right, it's probably a bit small, but this is a typical legal entity structure of how this is organized, which I don't know if that would translate to the UK. But basically, you have a cooperative. And underneath that, you have a limited company, and all the shares of that company are owned by the cooperative. And then if you're an end user of the district heating network, you have a contract with the company and you can become a member of the cooperative. Right. So let me go to the next slide, because this is what I really wanted to dive into with you, is what are the barriers for this? Because it's not that simple. The first step is, of course, that you need to have a legal position as an energy community to provide district heating. Also, there needs to be a lot of capacity building and knowledge sharing. I got something stuck in my throat. Hold on 1 second. Okay, let's see if it works. Also, we need access to capital, of course, collaboration with the municipality, and I don't know if what's the case in you, but we have a very sectoral approach. It's either talking about energy saving, energy production, or the heating solutions. Whereas an energy community looks at this in an integral part, and it's hard to match that with policies. So what we have worked on is a lot of advocacy to get broad political support for district heating. And for that, I'm going to come to your local energy plan. Because first of all, we had a new district heating law, which really we advocated that communities could own district heating. Because here's the tension between a publicly owned district heating network or community-owned one. And first, people thought, no, they can collaborate, they can coexist next to each other. In some cases, they can help each other, but the ownership, it's either with a public authority or it's with the actual end users of that network. So we made a specific definition that you can actually own it as just the end users, and that you get priority over a public heating company, because these people cannot move to a different neighborhood, whereas a public company can just choose where they do a project. So you get a priority position. Now, second to that, just this summer, we got a motion accepted that really recognizes energy communities as contributing to affordable and resilient energy systems, and that the government is finally going to make a dedicated program to support energy communities. And this motion references the local energy plan in the UK, because we said, hey, in the UK, they have a dedicated program to support local energy and community-owned energy with the specific goal of, hey, every community in the UK should be able to, at least if they want to, own their own production or do their own project. And that inspired the politicians in the Netherlands to be like, hey, we need also to have a clearer vision and to really have a program to support that local ownership, because, again, it contributes to safety and affordability. So it's not framed as sustainability at all. It's really framed around affordability. And that meant that we had very broad political support also from the more right-oriented parties. Now, we do a lot of capacity building around district heating because it's very complicated. I will not go into that, but there was another English, actually, a research program about how to make step-by-step a guide, how to do community district heating. So just look this up. It's called the Skill Project, and the link will be sent to you. But what is more important is that we build a whole landscape of how do you call that in English? Cooperatives, I guess, that support local initiatives, because owning a district heating network is very complicated, and you don't want local homeowners to become experts in that, or it's not realistic. So they need to be able to buy services, service companies, that's the word I was looking for. So in the Netherlands, we have a really big structure of cooperative companies that only specifically help and provide services to cooperatives or energy communities in the future, both for the energy supply and retail, which we're not talking about today, but these are the companies in the Netherlands that help with the energy sharing that Francesco was explaining in Italy. But then we also have service providers and project developers for district heating. So you can just hire a project leader for them, and they've done it before, they can help you. The same has happened in Spain and France, where the Federation of Energy Communities has made a separate service company, cooperative service company, to provide services for complicated projects, basically. And then below you see regional, we have a lot of regional federations of cooperatives that again help with knowledge sharing, capacity building, and especially the mediation with the local authorities. Yeah. Now, lastly, the last topic I want to dive into is financing, because that's, of course, a big bottleneck always. How are we going to finance this? So I wanted to talk a little bit about the financing. And in the Netherlands, we split that up into 3 phases if you want to build a community-owned district heating network. you have the initial phase, the development phase, and then the actual build, the realization. That's where you actually buy the assets, let's say, and build them. But first, the initial phase, it's like really from the first idea with 3 neighbors on your street, like Olaf in Zwolle, they were talking, let's quit gas. We want to maybe have district heating. For that, it was very unequal. Like some local authorities would offer a small grant to do a feasibility study, but a lot of them didn't. So we lobbied a lot with the national government to make a national grant scheme for these first feasibility studies to enable local communities to study if they want to do a project. The government so far has not allocated budget for that. So again, we're referring to your local energy plan saying, hey, the UK has allocated a lot of money to do these kinds of things. We want that as well. They're not doing it yet. So we collaborated with a private bank, the Rabobank. It's a cooperative bank, actually. And they gave us a €2 million donation, basically, to give grants to these starting initiatives, hoping that the national government will take that on. So that would be an interesting thing to see if you can set up, or if you already have it in the UK. Then after that becomes the development phase. And with a normal company, you have a lot of acquisition money or money from other projects to finance the developmental phase, because it's a 2-year time frame that you're doing a lot of, making the business case, making the technical plans for the district heating. That's a lot of hours and a lot of costs. You cannot do that on voluntary hours, and you cannot raise that from a neighborhood because it's very high risk money. You can also not get a loan from it from a bank. So what we did is this time we were successful with the national government. They made a fund, 25 million euros, of which an energy community can get a loan. So it is a loan, but so you have to pay it back once your district heating network is finished, but it's a 0 risk loan. So if your project doesn't reach financial close, you don't have to pay the loan back and it becomes a grant. So through that, they are really helping finance energy communities that want to build a district heating network in an existing neighborhood to do that developmental phase. And Energie Samen, as a federation of energy communities, we manage that fund. So we help people with the application, where there's very specific deliverables that you have to do, etc. It's a very long story, but I have to tell it in a short time now. So I'll move on to the realization phase. We have some subsidies, which hopefully you have as well, subsidies or grants for building the infrastructure of district heating, but that's not enough. You also need, of course, loans. And in the Netherlands, we're working on a national guarantee so that you can get loans at a lower interest rate as an energy community. And also, we need support in reaching equity. Because with a windmill project in the Netherlands, it's easy to raise enough equity by having financial participation of members. We have a lot of actually energy communities that are full owners of the wind projects. So they have put in equity up to 6 million euros for one project. We were able to raise that because you have quite a big, you can raise it with a lot of people. But with district heating, it's a very small neighborhood and it's a higher amount of money that you need. So for that, we're making a national equity fund that would basically also give you a loan for the equity. And I don't know the right English terms for those kinds of loans, but it's a specific loan. And of course, you still need a little bit of equity, but that's what we're setting up so that energy communities can do bigger projects. And the idea is that during the years of the realization, you pay back that so that it becomes fully owned actually by the local people. Yeah, and of course, we also have tooling for organizing that financial participation. I'm going to round off now just to stay in the time, sorry. But the last difficult thing is always the collaboration with local authorities. So just wanted to highlight that we are from Energie Samen highly stimulating local authorities to create a vision on their collaboration with energy communities. Amsterdam is a great example. They've made a separate policy documents specifying how they relate themselves to energy communities and how they're going to support them. So that would be worth looking into. And what we always mention is it starts with the, ringing a doorbell and having a conversation. And with fighting energy poverty and taking energy efficiency measures, that's a very good first step to then maybe later actually switch using natural gas and making a district heating network. That's a very big project. So we say it always starts with taking smaller measures and doing energy saving advice. So don't start with the big project, but start with the little project. Yeah. Thank you very much. That was it for me.
Thank you very much, Ilonka. So we have got some time for questions and answers now. So I'm going to start with one of the questions that was raised in the Q&A, and that's for Francesco from Michael Bevan. So does your renewable energy community encourage energy reduction as well as energy generation, or are you just focused on energy generation?
Well, I answer making a reference to the system in which REC are working at the moment in Italy. Personally speaking, I would say that the first saving is the reduction. So if I don't use energy, I don't spend. But if I put myself in the perspective of a renewable energy community that must generate incentives to create impacts on the territories and to its own members, sometimes, or at least in this first phase, it would be a countersense to reduce the consumption of its members, because in this way they risk the REC risk to reduce the sharing of energy and reduce the incentive to be collected and to be redistributed into territories. On another point of view, I would say that if energy communities convince people to move as a member, as a consumer member in the community, in this way they are forced to virtually consume renewable energy instead of fossil fuel energy. And so, in my opinion, in this way, we can even drive a certain kind of movement from fossil fuel to renewable. But of course, there are some activities of the most well-structured energy communities that will that deal particularly and mainly with SMEs instead of with families, that they are supporting SMEs themselves to reduce their consumption. So the answer is it happens. It is not so common to find energy communities that work on the reduction of the consumption. And in my opinion, there is also a rational reason why they are not working so much at the moment on this field, but probably will be the next step, in my opinion.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. The next is sort of a combination of two questions for Ilonka about the district heat networks. So the first was from Ollie, which is how do you go about prioritizing and ensuring that communities are given priority for the district heat network? And a linked question somewhat relating to the finance and engagement from Danny, how do you go about raising that 6 million from the community? Particularly what stakeholders do you need to engage to successfully get the money that you need?
Yeah, all right. Thank you for these questions. So Ollie, yeah, it's quite complex, our laws around district heating, but there is a law that really regulates the priority for energy communities with regards to district heating. Because in the Netherlands, if you want to be a company that supplies district heating, that's a very regulated market. And the municipality needs to make a kavel, a plot. They need to dedicate a plot. They need to say that's where district heating is allowed to be supplied. And once they've made that plot, companies can bid on it, basically. It can be like, we want to do that. But because it's all going to be publicly owned, they said there probably won't be any competition, because as they make the plot and then the public heating company will be like, okay, we'll be doing it. But then we were like, wait, but what if the community wants to do it? Then you actually do get competition between two companies maybe wanting to deliver heat on that plot. So then they said, okay, yes. In that case, whenever a municipality publishes a plot saying in this area, in this neighborhood, there needs to be district heating, if there is an energy community interested, they get priority access to it, and the municipality needs to support them in organizing themselves, because very often that's like 10 neighbors that say, maybe we want to do it as an energy community, and they're not yet to the level that they can actually, supply heating. You need to become a real company, of course. So the municipality actually needs to support that. So that is embedded in our collective heating law, it's called. It's just an article in that law. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's really interesting to hear the kind of the local authority or the municipality is taking the role there. And then
it kind of links to, because I saw this other question about like, what are the top 3 actions that the UK should do to support community energy? And we at Energie Samen, we have this top 3. It's always like you need the right legal position, you need the support with capacity building, and you need finances in order. And this legal position is the question, I don't know exactly what that's like in the UK. Of course, you need definitions of energy community, of energy sharing. But second to that, you need also targets. So in the Netherlands, we have a legal target that every renewable production project, every windmill project, whatever, should strive for at least 50% local ownership. That is enforced by law. And then in the heating, it's enforced by law saying like, hey, if a community wants to do it, so that gives you a legal position. Then you need to support with capacity building. And that is currently in the Netherlands not really supported that much, that they give government money for knowledge sharing, for providing services, etc. So we're still trying to raise more capital for that. At the European level, that is obligatory. They say every member state needs to have an enabling framework for energy communities. And enabling framework, they mean with that support, with knowledge and capacity building. But member states have to find their own budget to fill that. And that is the Netherlands keeps saying that they don't have budget. Then the third thing is how to finance your project. And that also brings me back to the equity question. So we say the energy communities need support with finances in those 3 phases. So you need different support with finances in the initial phase. When you're like 3 volunteers just starting, you need grants. Then when you're really developing a project, you might be able to do it with loans, or you need access to loans. So if that is not currently available in the UK, you should strive to get that and strive to get those grants. And then in the realization phase, you need access to good debt loans, and you need, of course, to be able to organize your equity. And that equity question, it differs a lot. So the question here is like, how were you able to raise 6 million? That was not for a district heating project. That was for a big windmill project that allowed everybody in the Netherlands to financially participate. So then you're asking money to 18 million people. And there was a lot of communication, which is not my personal expertise, but like, newsletters, flyers, blah, 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 etc. Just stating that if you invest money, you get a fixed interest rate back, which is maatschappelijk. So it's not that high, but at least it's higher than when you're putting money on a saving account. So in the Netherlands, it's roughly between 4 to 6% that our energy communities offer. Whereas, commercial companies make up to 15% on their equity or something like that. So how we go about that is with a lot of promotional campaigns, just campaigning, saying people you can financially participate. And then we do have from Energie Samen, we facilitate it by having the right computer tool, software to to register people that and to every year give them the money. That the tooling, of course, is done nationally, so that not every community has to have a financial participation tool. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Sort of, we can pick up that 3 points questions, because you summarised 3 excellent things that I think that the UK could do to rapidly support community energy. So Francesco, I'd like to ask you the same question as well. From your perspective, working in Italy, what 3 things, sort of top actions, should the UK do to rapidly support more community energy?
Well, I would say a clear regulatory framework, for sure, because in Italy we have seen that we have lost too much time to discuss and to create a regulatory framework that is stable and in a long-term view. Because if the regulatory framework is just fixed for 1 to 3 years, and the second point, the finance is just, how can I say, provided for the first steps, you risk to jeopardize all the efforts done. So legal framework, regulatory framework, clear. Then programs to finance, as Ilonka said, you can decide many things and many ways to get finance to energy communities. In our opinion, what we have seen that was completely missing was finance for feasibility and assessment studies, because everybody came with his own idea about what an energy community may do, but no one made the account well done. So if you have the best idea, but you have not money to back it, and maybe people sometimes they don't do how to do it, and so in my opinion, financing the first evaluation phases is even more interesting than financing the development, because the development we can find many other ways. We have cooperative ways, we have impact investors, we have other things, but nobody at the moment in the market put some money for your assessments. And this is the second point. The third point is, I don't know how it works in the UK, but in Italy, we have a very difficult engagement of the communities. We are not used to work as a community. In some areas, it is very popular and historically are focused on the community works. In Veneto, for example, where we are set, we are not so well oriented towards cooperation. So community engagement must be really taken into account. And if there are places in which is not so strong, I think is the third pillars on you should work on, even using the social impact leverage to make community work, because you demonstrate that they will have feedback.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I think we'll open this one to the panelists, and I think including Mark and Ollie, I think you'd also be really good to bring your insight into this. So it's a question from Alex Hartley. So GB Energy has been mentioned a few different times today, as has the local power plan here in the UK. But in the UK, we're experiencing some tensions around the delivery of that and how that kind of manifests for community energy groups. So Alex asks, are there any examples from Europe of central government initiatives like Great British Energy that work especially well and essentially that are not competitors to community energy, which is a perceived risk here in the UK?
Yeah, so I am not completely sure how Great Britain Energy works, but I'm going to assume it's a public company. Yeah, okay. So we do have examples where they do actually collaborate quite well. But then it's often like providing services to each other. So it's either a public company doing an energy project, but they buy in services from the local energy community. And that could be either buying in their energy or buying in literally that they are the entity that like goes to door, ringing having the conversations or doing the energy saving activities, whatever. So, but then you become a service provider. As an energy community, you become the service provider of the local authority. And basically, you're just a contracted entity. And that also works in reverse. So we also have energy communities that actually buy services from public companies. So we now have big public companies that are going to do public district heating. They are, of course, very advanced in certain areas, like making the technical calculations of those pipes, let's say. And you can just hire their services to do that specific part. Without sharing ownership. We have a few examples where they actually share shares in a limited company, but it's often very difficult to specify like who has which decision-making power and who carries which risks and takes which investment. So yeah, in practice, it's more often that they just amplify each other through providing services to each other than that they actually share ownership. But in the developmental phase, they do often collaborate when you're both still you're not sure who's going to, in the end, own the actual production facility. Then both entities can collaborate, developing a project. And during that developmental phase, you kind of decide like who is going to take the ownership, have the decision-making power. Yeah, so I could share probably some names of projects later. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really interesting. Klaus, you've had up.
Hi there, thank you for your invitation. I want to ask Mr. Mark bluntly, based on your experience, are there your funding programs that allow NGO or community energy organization from several member states to form a consortium and apply directly for grant, particularly in countries where the main funding opportunities are primarily addressed to municipality or other public authorities? This is especially relevant where local authorities may be reluctant to cooperate with civil society initiative even when the NGO is legally established and the project concept, documentation, and proposed governance structure have already been prepared in accordance with the applicable legal framework. If so, which program or partnership structure would you recommend for an emerging community energy initiative such as Cel Verde in Romania? My project, Cel Verde, is one of the best of Southeast Europe, but my local authority is fair to applicate with me. I have a good collaboration with academic medium or technical partners, but local authorities don't involved.
Okay, I'll try and answer that, and Ilonka might come in behind actually as well as on this. So one of the things ResCoop does is it works with its members and other organisations to put together the consortiums to bid for particularly EU funds. The main fund is called the LIFE programme, but there are others such as Horizon, where we bring a series of maybe 5 or 6 organizations together. Sometimes they will be the energy community in that country, and sometimes it'll be academics within that country as well. And very much the principle is we try and bring groups with different sets of skills and different levels of knowledge so that people can learn from each other. And so we have a series of calls. So they're regular calls, and on our website, we talk about those and we bring people together to discuss what those projects might be. So we think, well, actually, here's an idea. Are other co-ops interested? And so sometimes we run those projects and sometimes other co-ops run those projects. And so, as I say, we're doing work because it typically takes 6 months to put a proposal together. So we regularly do that, and I can look up and give you details of how to find out more about that process. That's me talking very confidently about something I don't know exactly right to do. So if Ilonka wants to add anything, if I've forgotten something.
No, that's it. And on the website, we have very clearly detailed how ResCoop is engaging with the members and energy communities that want to join calls. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And I think we'll finish with one final question, which has just come in from Five from Greener and Cleaner. So for community-owned energy infrastructure, who provides the maintenance and emergency response if the system becomes unavailable or faulty? And I think that's particularly relevant for these projects that are potentially collaborations between local authorities and community.
I could, if it's any good, I could certainly talk a little bit about what happens in the UK. So, I mean, I chair Westmill Wind, and that isn't a joint venture. But crucially, if you run a community energy project, you have to have it run professionally. So we employ professional asset managers who look after the site. So in the case of wind, it's RWE, who are a specialist contractor. And then in the case of, so all of our projects tend to have specialist contractors who are there because these projects, always something's happening and you have to have somebody out, a gear goes wrong, a switch gear or software, and they need regular maintenance. It's just like a car. So you have to do that sort of thing. And if you've got joint projects, it's similar, your partners. So there are 3 big joint projects in the Energy for All family and in Edinburgh, North Links and the schools projects. And one of the things the partners expect to see is, well, how are you going to maintain this? And who's going to do that? And is it going to be done professionally? And that's one of the important things you have to have in place when you go to a partner and say, well, would you like to work with this community? They need to know that the stuff is going to be properly maintained.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So thank you everybody for the presentation and your fantastic presentations and for the range of questions we've been able to have here. I'm sure if we were all together, we would continue these long into the rest of the afternoon, but sadly that is all we have time for today. I think for today has been a fantastic opportunity to hear some of the ways that things can be done a little bit differently. So yes, we operate in different regulatory frameworks. Yes, we operate in different environments, both here in our respective countries and when you compare the EU to the UK. But I think exactly as Mark said, by looking outwards, there's a lot that we can learn from each other and that we can bring home to our respective countries about how we can develop community energy. Without any further ado, I think that's the end of our session today. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining. We will make the recording available as soon as possible so that you can review and share with as many people as possible. And if you want to stay in touch with each other, please do. We can potentially help to facilitate that with people's permission. Thank you very much for joining today, everybody. Have a good rest of your afternoons.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Ben.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye. Thanks a lot.
Francesco, Ilonka, Mark. Thanks, guys. Lots of food for thought.
Thank you.